I'm Newswatch 16, Stacey Lang. Thanks for joining us for Case of Interest Kohberger. This is the weekly segment here on WNEP Plus, WNEP.com, and on YouTube, where we rehash the weekly details in the case against Bryan Kohberger. This investigation and case has a great deal of national interest, but also local interest for our viewers in northeastern and central Pennsylvania. Of course, back in November of 2022, you'll remember 4 University of Idaho students were murdered in their off-campus home. After 2 months of investigation, the case found its way in Monroe County, Pennsylvania, where an arrest was made. The suspect, Bryan Kohberger, is a native of Monroe County, a student at Washington State University, a PhD candidate, I should say, and he is now facing 4 counts of first-degree murder for the murder of those University of Idaho students. There's not much that we can learn from this case other than from court documents. So that's the point of this segment, is to go through court documents as they're released typically weekly. This is an unusual week, though, because the Idaho courts have not released any new documents so far yet this week. So one thing we're going to talk about in today's episode is a story. It's an Idaho local news story that has really gained national attention purely because of Kohberger, and has to do with the death penalty in the state of Idaho. Now, we don't know if the death penalty is going to be sought in the case against Bryan Kohberger. Also, all signs are pointing to that's going to become a reality. We know that because of court filings that indicate that first of all, the defense attorney that's representing Kohberger is certified to be a defense attorney in a capital murder case. And she is now seeking, her name's Ann Taylor, she's now seeking a co-counsel that would also be certified in a capital murder case. So that really points to this becoming a death penalty case. We might learn that when Bryan Kohberger is next in court, and that's at the end of June. We could learn that before if any court filings point in that direction, but we'll have to wait and see. But there has been a lot of interest about a bill that's been going through the Idaho legislature, which just received some big movement on Monday. The legislature voted and approved a bill. It's now law because it was such an overwhelming majority that the governor can't veto it, even if he wanted to. That now says that someone can be put to death by firing squad in the state of Idaho if the drugs needed for lethal injection are not available. That sounds really far-fetched, but it's actually a law that exists in a few other states. I have a list here. South Carolina, Mississippi, Oklahoma, and Utah also have similar laws. And it's a reality in Idaho. This exact scenario is actually playing out. There's a man on death row in Idaho who's had his execution delayed now a few times since December of 2021 because the state of Idaho has not been able to secure the drugs needed for lethal injection. I'm going to point to a story done by our sister station, KREM in Spokane, Washington, and we'll link to this story on WNEP.com as well if you'd like to read it. There's a video at the bottom that explains some details about why a law like this might be necessary. The drugs needed for lethal injection are actually pretty difficult to come by because they're not produced in the United States. They're produced in Europe, and especially during the pandemic, that was a problem. And it's also getting more and more difficult to find a physician that is willing to perform a lethal injection execution because they say it violates their Hippocratic oath. And that kind of goes with what's been a national trend that a lot of states, including Pennsylvania, are suspending or even getting rid of their death penalty, which is something Governor Shapiro here in Pennsylvania is considering too. So that's what's going on in Idaho, and that is now law. Of course, there are so many unknowns. Will this affect the Kohberger case? We don't know. We don't even know if it's a capital murder case at this point. So the timing of this story and the Kohberger case is purely coincidental. I think that a lot of national media is drawing a connection between the two, but this was already being considered before the University of Idaho murders even happened. And again, whether or not Latah County prosecutors pursue the death penalty is something that we're going to be paying close attention to as we continue watching this case unfold. And we'll be here every week to do that and go over the details with you and help explain everything to you as it happens. So thanks for tuning in to this episode of Case of Interest Kohberger. We'll see you next week.